Hello and welcome back to Bourbon Barrel Talk. I'm your host, Scott Minton. Today we are at Star Hill Farm here on the campus of Maker's Mark, and we are spending time with Mr. Thomas Bolton. He is the Senior Manager of Experience and Education. So Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. If only I wouldn't have messed that up 3 times before we got started.
Hey, it's fine. You can cut and edit that out.
I appreciate your patience. Anyway, so thanks so much for joining us and for the lovely tour today. But before we dive into Maker's Mark, which is what we're here to talk about, I always like to find out more about the people that make the brand happen. So, Thomas, tell us a little bit about you and how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me to tell this story truly the way it deserves to be told, I have to start from the beginning of moving up here to Kentucky. I'm originally from Georgia. I went to school at Georgia College and State University in Milledgeville, Georgia. And that's where I met my wife. In the time, we're the same age. In the time it took me to graduate with my undergrad, my wife graduated, took a year off to get in the workforce, and then went back and got her master's. So I was running a bar at the time, and I was also a firefighter, and and then working a lot, and then going through school, taking my time. So I told her, and she got her master's degree in teaching. I said, hey, wherever you get a job, my 2 skills are standing behind a bar and putting out fires, and those are pretty transferable no matter where you go. I can find a job. And so we were getting married May 18th, which is tomorrow, so it's 2012. And she interviewed for Jefferson County in Louisville. She interviewed all over. She applied for jobs all over the United States. And they called her back on her way to a rehearsal dinner and said, hey, we want to offer you the job. And she said, Jefferson County, where is that? Louisville, Kentucky. And she goes, well, I'm getting married tomorrow. Can I call off my honeymoon and give you an answer? And they were in a teacher shortage at the time, and they said, you have 24 hours to decide or we're going to offer it to somebody else. So she hung up the phone, and she told me that, and I looked at her, and I said, do you know anyone in Louisville, Kentucky? She said, I do not. She said, do you know anyone in Louisville, Kentucky? And I said, I do not. And then we said, cool, let's move to Louisville, Kentucky. And so we didn't tell our parents or anybody. We got married, and we went on our honeymoon and came back. I put a month's notice in the bar I was running. Shout out to Buffington's in Milledgeville, Georgia. And moved up here not knowing anybody. And so I ended up breaking in the restaurant industry here, and I was a bar manager for a place called Exchange Pub and Kitchen in New Albany, Indiana. And I decided that what I wanted to do was open up my own bar and restaurant. And, I graduated undergrad with a degree in criminal justice and a second degree in sociology. Nothing in business. And
I was about to say, that has nothing to do with the bar industry.
Yep. And I realized that if I wanted to, I need to understand business a little bit more. So I ended up going to get my MBA at Bellarmine University in Louisville, Kentucky. And after I was in that, I got a chance to look at the P&L of a restaurant industry, and I was like, I do not want to own my own bar and restaurant. Turns out that is not what I want to do. And seeing how hard, the owners of bars and restaurants have to work to make ends meet and keep people employed. And so I was at Bellarmine, and at Bellarmine, through the MBA program, you have to do an international business class, and they actually send you somewhere for a couple weeks. So I chose to go to India. On that trip, I met someone named Jane Bowie. Jane Bowie was the diplomat for Maker's Mark when I met her. She was our director of innovation, and now she's over at Potter Jane Distillery with Denny Potter. He's spare master still here at Maker's Mark. I met Jane, and her and I hit it off really well. And I realized what the bourbon industry had to offer. And so I decided at that point she was the diplomat. And I was like, I want to do that job. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And so anyways, we finished grad school and I had the opportunity. Someone came to me and they're like, hey, we're going to invest. We want to open up a bar. We want you to run it. And I was like, all right, this would be cool. Let's see how this goes. And so we had a meeting to sign the lease. And these 4 investors are supposed to be these 4 really well-off people. One of them showed up to the meeting. And I was like, this isn't great. And I actually, my in-laws were coming into town, and my wife's grandfather's favorite drink was a Maker's Mark Manhattan. And so when my in-laws were coming to town, he had passed away. I wanted to show my wife's mom and dad Maker's Mark. Plus, Jane was a friend of mine, and every time I came here, she made me feel like royalty. Bottles to dip, it was a private tour, it was really cool. And I also wanted to show off to my in-laws that I had made friends in Louisville since we moved here.
That's a pretty iconic friend.
Yep. Yeah, she's incredible. And so we came down here, went on the tour, and I can tell you the spot in the gift shop. She was like, hey, what's going on? You seem a little bit off. And I told her about this story that happened the day before. And she was like, I know what you want to do, which is be a diplomat. You can't do that right now. That's not how this works. But we have an opening for a tour guide position. I can't get you a job, but I can pull your resume and ask them to interview you. And so I came down and sat in this room and had my interview, and I ended up getting a job as a tour guide down here. And, it's one of those things here. I wanted to get my foot in the door, and I learned a long time that I'm never the smartest person in a room. It takes a lot of people an hour to learn. It's going to take me 2 hours to learn. And in that, when you realize that, you realize you got to work harder to learn the same thing. You can learn things and remember them, but that work ethic never goes away. So I knew when I was here that what I wanted to do was get my foot in the door and move up in this company, that you weren't going to outwork me. And that's kind of how I moved through here. I said yes to every overtime opportunity. I showed up every day ready to talk to people about bourbon, because that's a really cool job. You're working 70, 80 hours behind a bar. I remember in my interview, the person interviewed me, I was like, is there anything about this job or about my resume that that gives you pause, or about me that might think I won't be a good fit, so I can address it now? And they were like, yeah, it's only 40 hours a week, and right now you're working 70 to 80. I'm afraid you're going to get bored. And I said, well, let me find stuff to do to not get bored, right? Like, don't not hire me because you're afraid. Like, why don't you let me work the 40 hours and then fill the rest of the time with stuff not to get bored? And so I got the job, and I did it for about 9 months. And then the diplomat spot opened up, and I applied for that, and I became the Maker's Mark diplomat for Kentucky, which was an awesome job. I did that for about 5 years. You're sitting. I worked at the Louisville office, and that's where Rob Samuels and Bill Samuels Jr. sat, and so you got to be around true legends of the industry and learn a lot there. Did that job for over 5 years, and then I took a job as the heritage manager for Maker's Mark on the East Coast. Covered about 17 states. So I managed the diplomats on that side. We had about 7. I also managed a private selection program, and then helped develop plans and work on education to move the brand in market on the commercial side of things. It's really cool. Love that job. Traveled all up and down the East Coast. Traveled quite a bit, and I have 2 kids. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son, and it got to the point when I would leave that they'd be grabbing on my legs saying, don't go. And so I had to decide there what the change was, because the career path for me was either lean heavily into the commercial side or do something different. And the job that I have now came up, and I had a choice to make there. And I am a firm believer that you don't half-ass 2 things, you whole-ass 1 thing. And so I had to make a choice. Was it come back here or pursue the commercial opportunities that might present themselves, might not, And I was struggling with that, and I had to cover for a diplomat to do a barrel selection down here for one of my diplomats. And so I came down to host, and I hadn't had the opportunity to do that in a year and a half, host a group all the way through the private barrel selection. And when I left this place, I just couldn't stop smiling, and it was one of those, follow the smile, do that. So I went home and told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm going for this job. I'll be home more, but it's an hour and 15 minutes away from home. So I'll be home later than I typically am, and all that stuff. And we talked about it, and I was lucky enough to get the position. And, here at the home place at Maker's Mark, which is now running the team that I started on. So really cool opportunity.
That is super awesome. It's funny how everybody's story is a little different.
Yeah.
But everybody's story is kind of the same. It's the love of what you do and the love of the industry that kind of pulls you in and holds on to you in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something you had said is, you said chase the smile.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's a wonderful business lesson, wonderful life lesson. Put that on a bumper.
Well, so let's dive in. Maker's Mark, and I learned quite a few things today while we were out gallivanting around in the SUV and the Star Hill Farm and all the sustainability, the other things that are going on. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about what you're doing there from that perspective.
Yeah, so, as a brand, we started in 1953, and when the Samuels, which is Bill and Margie Samuels, when they bought this property in 1953, it came with around 200 acres, 11-acre spring-fed lake, 7 buildings on site, because this used to be a distillery back in the day. And they got it for about $35,000.
A steal.
Yep. A steal of a deal. I was actually one of our bourbon specialists here did the math, and that was about $435,000 back then. So we've continued to grow, right? And we now own 1,100 acres. We still own that 10-acre spring-fed lake. We are the only bourbon distillery that owns its freshwater source, as well as the entire watershed that impacts that water source, as far as we know, right? No one else has come out and said that. So And one of the reasons we do that is because we looked at and made a 100-year plan of what it would take to make Maker's Mark for the next 100 years. And we looked at, natural disasters, things like that. And through that 100-year plan, we realized that if we want to keep doing this, we got to start doing the right things now. And we believe here that bourbon is an agricultural product. Like, bourbon is nature distilled. And if you're not taking care of nature and the things around you, then you won't be able to do that in perpetuity for a long time. So it's one of those things. Someone's got to do the right thing now, so people 100 years from now can enjoy this delicious Loretto liquid gold, right? And so we're happy to carry that mantle as a brand and do that. And so one of the things that you've seen is that you saw today was, our White Oak Research Forest. We're working partner with the University of Kentucky and planting, subspecies of white American oak all over 5 acres, so we can study it for about 100-year long project. So that project won't finish. I'll be dead long before that project gets done. We have over 400 sheep on site for regenerative agriculture. We have 20 Wagyu cattle for the restaurant. We have a mushroom quarry. We have over 55 apiaries where we use the sweeteners for honey for our cocktails, so we're not buying processed sugar. Like all those small little things, not all of those are little things, but it's I guess what I'm trying to say is you got to do the big things, but it matters at the small things too.
Yeah.
Right? You can do the big flashy things and people can see it, like our solar array, and those things, they're awesome. They're very easy to see, but it's the little decisions that you make here that truly make the impact and change the culture of a place.
And then having to keep sticking to your guns on it too.
Yes, absolutely. It's not always going to be the easiest thing to do, but very rarely is the right thing to do the easiest thing to do, right?
Well, I think that attention to detail is what makes certain brands special, right? It's you have to not only watch the big things, but you also pay attention to the small things, and that really makes things dialed in and special because you know that you're going to have some consistency.
Right.
I've always kind of attributed to Maker's Mark similar to, I'll give a couple of local examples like Cane's, Chick-fil-A. The reason why I say that is that you're one of the few brands that really don't have multi-lines like, rye, regular bourbon. You're a wheated bourbon, and you've stuck to your guns for all of these years, and and keep putting out that consistent product.
Yeah. I think, to that note, I used to be one of these bartenders, right? I mean, you sat at my bar, back in the day, you told me. And if you guys didn't know what I was doing there, I was twirling my mustache.
The old handlebar.
Yeah. So, it was all craft, all everything. And that's the most important thing. And I've had people since I've worked for this brand say that, and it's really weird when I hear that to be like, well, what's the definition of craft? Is craft hand rotating your barrels? Is craft hand dipping over 28 million bottles? Is craft having a distillery that you literally have to change the wheels on the roller mill to crush different grains? Like, what is, if I told you that and that we were only making 10 barrels a day, would you say that's craft? Probably. What I think here for us is that, it's been said that Maker's Mark was the first craft distillery. And I think what we truly are is what every craft distillery wants to be one day. Is be in 95% of bars across America and stick to your guns and make whiskey the way you've been doing it since 1953, since the beginning. So those are things that I love about working here, is that we do not sacrifice flavor for profit, and we will do the right things to protect the bourbon and protect the people that work here.
Yeah, I think on the tour you mentioned, something about the fact that some analyst came in and said, you guys would save like $1 million if you had barrel entry proof at 120 or 125 versus the 110 which you guys use. Like that's a note to your craft, right? Like right. You're not trying to make as much money as you can. You're trying to make the best whiskey you can.
Absolutely.
And that's the difference.
Yeah, and also I don't know of another distillery that has, how many mash bills do you have?
We have one. One for Maker's Mark.
Yeah, exactly. And you've had that same mash bill for how many years?
Since 1953.
1953.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen.
And for people that don't know the mash bill, if you don't mind,
right? Absolutely, we're 70% corn, 16% soft red winter wheat, and 14% malted barley. And I think it's also important to talk about how we started in '53. We started as a taste vision. Bourbon back there in the '50s was essentially a commodity product, which was something that you made by the byproduct of something else, like crushing grain, right? And bourbon in the '50s was a vehicle to get to a destination. That destination was drunk. Right, there were no bourbon podcasts around in the '50s. these Stolzel glasses that we used weren't around. Like, people weren't holding up to light, looking at it, swirling it around, nosing it, swishing it, doing the Kentucky Chew, unless you worked in the industry, right? There was a lot of pouring into a glass and drinking as fast as you could. And so Bill Samuels Sr. wanted to create a bourbon. You have to teach people how to drink. You start with the taste vision, sweet, smooth front palate finish, and then he worked his way backwards to figure out what to do to get there, which was unique. No one had done that before. And then, like you said, then he stuck to his guns and just kept doing it that way.
Relentlessly.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the bottle, the wax, all the things that goes into the branding. And then, like, there's always the special part of opening a Maker's Mark bottle that goes with that. So let's talk a little bit about that and then we'll actually open a bottle, and then we'll taste it, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I said we were co-founded by Bill and Margie Samuels. I say that because Bill did everything that goes inside that bottle, but that is half of the battle when it comes to making a bourbon. Margie Samuels did everything else. So the shape of the bottle. I don't know. I mean, we talked about this, but bottles in the 50s, right? Were in older bottles were all kind of one. Yeah. They were same bottle types with different labels on them. Margie was inspired by old cognac bottles, long neck, rounded edges. So she designed this, and Bill was like, "Hey, you're not going to get anyone to make this for you." And she said, "Why don't you let me worry about that?" And she found someone to make it for her, right? So we have that. The next is the label. She used to handwrite, hand tear, and hand apply the original label's Maker's Mark. I have had the opportunity to go to Bill Samuel Jr.'s house and see the first bottle off the line. And it's all signed by the 11 people that worked there at the time, and it's hand torn out. It's stuck on there. So the ridges on our label are not to margin the way she used to hand tear labels. Now, the name Maker's Mark, that's also hers. So when you come down to our distillery, you're going to go into what we call Margie's Vestibule if you come and do one of our classic tours here. And you're going to see Margie's pewter collection. So pewter handmade silver has a stamp or a seal on the bottom of it. It's called the Mark of the Maker. That shows that it's handmade, right? It's quality. The person that made it put their name on it because that name comes with gravity and weight, and they want to sell it, right? So she loved that, I guess, sense of pride in your craftsmanship. And so she chose the name Maker's Mark. And then she designed our mark, which is the star in the circle. That stands for Star Hill Farm, right? That's where we sit today. That's what the Samuels family used to brand their cattle with, that star in that circle. The S stands for Samuels, and the Roman numeral 4 stands for fourth generation distiller, which is what Bill Samuels Sr. was. And then probably the most iconic thing that she did was she put a deep fryer in the basement. She filled it full of red wax, and she did the first bottles of Maker's Mark. So if you take everything I just said and put together, it's our entire packaging. All right, you do not buy the first bottle of Maker's Mark because of the way it tastes. You buy it because of the way it looks. Now your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, because of the way it tastes, right? We are one of, if not the most recognizable bourbon bottles on a shelf. And that's all because of Margie. I would not have the job I have today if it wasn't for her and the packaging that she did. And then it's Bill's relentless tenacity to continue to chase flavor profile and continue to do things as consistently as possible that has helped us grow as a brand. So with this bottle, it's also designed, I like to call it the opening of a Maker's Mark ritual. And really, it's the same thing like drinking a cocktail. The first thing someone drinks with is their eyes, right? You look at it first. Cocktails, eyes, you smell it, and then you drink it. There's not a lot of audible. For this, there's auditory stuff that goes on. And so I'm going to try to do this so you can catch it. So this is classic Maker's Mark, 90 proof. This beautiful redhead sits in over 90% of bars all across America, right? This is the bottle. This helps put my kids through daycare. So this is the one.
Thank goodness for that.
So what I'm going to do, like it's a ritual to me. It's taking off the wax and hearing that. It's unscrewing the cap, and then it's the way the bottle sounds when you pour it. That's super unique. That didn't happen, and that happens with this little dimple in the neck right here.
The glug.
Yep. All right, so first is the wax. Right? And then here it is. Right? That right there knows that you're about to have a great time.
Right.
Enjoy some really, really good bourbon. So
I don't think I ever knew about the glug part.
I know I didn't.
So it's funny. It's one of my mentors in life was a guy named Mark Evans, and Mark was the basketball coach at Mercy Academy, and he's also the athletic director.
I just have to say, now you cannot unhear that.
Yep.
Every time I pour it, I'm going to hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to think of today when you shared that.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
Yes, thank you for the memory.
Of course.
So the funny thing about that is I always drank wild turkey. You know, that was my go-to.
It's
right?
delicious.
And then it's a delicious bourbon, right? And then I started hanging out with Mark, and Mark always drank Maker's Mark. And I was like, "Do you drink it because it has your name?" And he goes, "Well," he goes, "But you know, I don't like the bitterness that rye gives off sometimes." I'm like, okay, cool. So we started drinking Maker's Mark, and like that was the first thing I noticed when he poured it. And I said, "Dude, the glug is so cool." He goes, "What do you mean the glug?" And I was like, so I poured it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I never really even thought of it that way." So it's weird that I instantly picked that up, and then when you said it, I was like, "Oh, it's the glug!" Like,
Yep.
and it's funny. A lot of people don't even think of it that way. Well, I poured way too much. So, but anyway, I can give somebody here. Give me a little something here.
It's all right. We got more.
No, I know. I'm the destination point. So,
And I just want to add that bottle. That's one. So there's so much artwork and posters and this and that of Kentucky, and it's always a silhouette of the bottle. That is the very, very first one that everybody picks out.
Yep.
Which is beautiful. It could be somebody that drinks whiskey once a year, once every 5 years. They all know the bottle. So
Yeah, it's a a master's course in marketing from Margie ran the family farm and had a degree in chemistry, so she was one of the best to ever do it. The first woman inducted in the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame associated with a single distillery. So that happened in 2014. So super proud of the partnership that they had to help bring this brand to life, because it takes a lot. Starting a bourbon brand is expensive. And, Rob always tells this joke, Rob Samuels, about his family. When you're starting a bourbon brand, imagine a P&L that's just 7 straight years of L's,
yeah.
right? Because everything costs money. Because then the thing is that you're building warehouse on top of the store, everything, and you don't even know how it's going to taste at the end.
Yeah.
Right? So you got 7 years of L's. Imagine going to for what you do, imagine going to a bank to get money, and you're like, by the way, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I know that I'm going to have to spend money for 7 years before I even get a chance to make $1 back.
Yeah, it's a scary proposition. It's a tribute to the tenacity of people that start their own labels and brands. I mean, it really is. I mean, because it's faith. It's blind faith, man, that like, hey, I know what I'm doing, and I feel really good that it's going to turn out to a point where people are going to really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to give context, like to our listeners, about how much how much Makers is paying in taxes per year.
You have to pay on every proof gallon that you make when it comes out, and then you pay on it every year in maturation. And we have over 50 warehouses. The largest are over 50,000 barrels. It's substantial. I won't go into the full numbers of it all, but it's a substantial amount of money. But that's bourbon as a whole.
Yeah.
Like you have federal and state taxes. Like bourbon is a massive. We are an agricultural product. Kentucky is an agricultural state, right? And bourbon is a great job not only employing a whole bunch of people as a whole, but also funding.
Yeah,
a whole bunch of tax dollars.
So I've never asked anybody this from Makers or anywhere else for that matter, and it's just something that I thought about, like sitting here, twirling a little bit of Makers in this glass. Is it the malt value, or is it the wheat that makes it give it so much legs and viscosity that just kind of holds to the glass?
That's a great question, and I'm the first person that will say I don't know when I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine it's the wheat. I also think like our barrel entry proof being lower at 110 has a lot to do with that. Wood sugars are more soluble in water than they are in alcohol.
Right.
So, I mean, when you taste out of that barrel today on that tour, the viscosity of that cast strength out of that barrel is vastly different than what we have in the glass for that 90 proof. But my guess would be more that and the wheat that we have. But that is a pure guess.
So as a cast strength snob, what's the highest proof you've seen come out of a barrel, and what's the lowest proof you've seen come out of a barrel?
It's a great question. The highest I've seen in fluctuation, because we rotate our barrels, so our proof fluctuation is not nearly as large as other people's.
Right.
Right? So when we did our DNA series, which is when we went into the barrel at 110, 115, 120, 125, that 110 got up to 115 point something proof, which is pretty big for us. The lowest I've seen one come out, I saw one come out at 106.9. And that was for a private selection, so which is our private barrel program. That's what I've seen on a label, right?
Gotcha.
But that's also, if you look at proof fluctuation, we go in at 110, and the highest I've seen is, that at 115.9, and then the lowest, or point whatever it was, and then the lowest I've seen is around 106. That's not a lot of proof variation.
It's not a lot. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, because I knew you said you all rotated barrels. Like, do you ever see like things in the 90s? Do you ever see things that are 135, 140? Like, that's just, because you see so much variance in a lot of other places because they don't, right? Like when it goes in goes in tier 6, it stays in tier 6 till it's done, right? So
I haven't seen anything like that
Gotcha.
For us.
I mean, I didn't really want to have that gloss over that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are probably the largest distillery that rotates barrels.
As far as we know, yeah.
Because I'm familiar with many other walkthroughs and tours, and they don't do the rotations.
No, I mean, it's a lot of work, but again, for us, we are all about flavor, and Maker's Mark will not sacrifice flavor for profit, and we stand on that. So that rotation is part of getting what you're tasting in that glass right now, right? Which is Bill Sr.'s sweet, smooth front palate finish, what he was going for.
Yes, and that attributes to that very low proof difference between them, that variance.
Yep, absolutely.
So you mentioned cocktails. Sorry, Brian. What cocktail do you think marries best with a Maker's Mark?
Well, we have Maker's Mark, Maker's 46, and Maker's Mark Cask Strength in our core lineups. So for me, if I'm drinking classic Maker's Mark, I love Maker's Mark soda water bitters with just a lemon peel, lemon oil expressed over top of it. The bitters help pump it up. The lemon gives it a little bit of acid. The soda water, like we're looking for highly carbonated, if you can get it out of a highball machine that Suntory makes where it's just a super clean carbonated water, it's fantastic. For Maker's Mark 46 with the French oak and the vanilla influence that we have on that and those amped up like baking spices, I love it in a Manhattan. And then for a little bit of a twist, instead of using sweet vermouth, I like to use a little bit of tawny port. And then black walnut bitters instead of Angostura bitters.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Anytime you get rid of vermouth, I'm a happy man.
Don't get me wrong, I love sweet vermouth, but I do like the richness of the tawny port with black walnut bitters. It's a great winter cocktail. And then Cask Strength for me is an 1806 old fashioned, right? Which is essentially the original cocktail sugar water bitters spirit. Stirred down with Angostura bitters and then an expressed orange peel, no muddling. And then the simple syrup I like to use is a raw sugar simple, 1-to-1 versus 2-to-1. I don't like it super sweet or rich, so 1 part water, 1 part sugar.
You were talking Barb's language. She's just happy with all that. It was also
yes, I am.
It was also fun to see you share that with us because we could see you looking up to the left, like you're looking back in time.
Yeah,
like to when you made it for the first time. That's cool.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story one time. I got in a pretty large argument with Bill Jr. At his house. We had an auction that we did. Essentially, we had John Veronese from Veronese Restaurant and River House would auction off essentially a dinner at Bill's house where Bill would tell stories, and then I did the cocktails because I used to do cocktails back in the day. And that, when I started at Maker's Mark as a diplomat, just do what you're good at and hopefully you can make that part of your job. And so I would just volunteer to do cocktails anywhere I could. So that way at least I had something in my wheelhouse. And we were doing that. And I was deciding to make a Manhattan. And that was one of the 3 drinks. And Bill had 20 people in his house. And he was touring around and he walked up. He was like, "This is Thomas. He makes great cocktails. Thomas, make me a Manhattan." And so I made a Manhattan. And standard Manhattan Bill is 2-1-2, right? 2 parts bourbon, 1 part sweet vermouth, 2 dashes of bitter stirred, served up. And so I made it, and I love a Manhattan. Like if I go out for drinks, it's the first one that I order, and I'm good at them. And I watch Bill, I'm not kidding you, take a sip and then spit it back in the cup and go, "That's awful. That's not a Manhattan." I said, "I think that's a Manhattan." And so I made another one. He did the same thing, and he goes, "What is wrong with you?" And this is in front of 20 people. And I was like, "What do you mean what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? That's a good Manhattan." And he goes, "Well, how'd you make it?" I was like, "It's a standard bill of a Manhattan, 2-1-2 bill, 2 parts bourbon, 1 part sweet vermouth, 2 dashes Angostura bitters." He goes, "That's not how I make my Manhattan." I was like, well, obviously this is the disconnect here. What do you do for yours? He goes, well, it's 2 parts bourbon. I was like, check, same thing. 1 part sweet vermouth, check. So I don't use bitters. It's like, well, that's not a Manhattan, like by definition. It's like, well, then what do you use? He goes, I do half Luxardo cherry juice and half maraschino cherry juice. I was like, I don't know what that is, Bill, but you cannot call that a Manhattan. And so he's like, well, just make it. And so I was like, cool. So I made it, did a bar spoon, and I angrily gave it to him. He goes, God, that's the best one I've ever had. And then like clockwork, 20 people. I'll have one of those. I'll have one of those. I'll have one of those. And so it's the Bill Samuels Jr. Manhattan, if you want to know. There's no bitters in it. But yeah, we had a pretty intense argument about cocktail theory right in front of 20 people in the middle of his kitchen.
Maybe he should call it a Brooklyn.
Yeah, well, maybe. We won't get into that, too.
Yeah.
Maybe a Bronx.
Yeah, fair enough.
So kind of segueing a little bit on the cocktails, you also have a restaurant here, and also,
Yep.
From our tour, you have the solar panels and a lot of the sustainability that kind of pours back into that. If you want to kind of touch a little bit on that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Great segue. So our restaurant on site is Star Hill Provisions. That's the name of our restaurant. We have James Beard nominated chef back there, Richard Knight, who's back there in the kitchen for us. And then we also have Leslie Ross, who's our senior cocktail curator, who's also an award-winning mixologist. And so we really have 2 places on site. We have the Home Place Bar, where you can get cocktails, which is right in the middle of our visitor center. And then we have Star Hill Provisions, which we have food. And then we also have a cocktail program run out of there that's a little bit different than the one up at the bar. We try to source 86% of our ingredients from this place if we can, right? The corn and the wheat that we source comes from a 60-mile radius of this distillery. And so that ends up being 86% of our mash bills. That's kind of what we use when we're sourcing stuff for our restaurant. From here, the goal is 86% comes from the place. We have an innovation garden where we grow a bunch of really cool food that we do in the restaurant. We also have a production garden, so if it works well in the innovation garden, we can produce it more in mass. We have Wagyu cattle on site, and we also have our own lamb and sheep that we get our proteins from. So the restaurant, is as good to farm to table as you can get here, and it is fantastic.
Then how much, as you kind of mentioned, the solar panels too, what does that power here on the farm?
Yeah, so we have 2 solar arrays on site, Star Hill Farm. So if you drive through Loretto, you'll see all of our big warehouses. Those are over 50, they're 7-story tall and over 50,000 barrels. The solar array on out there in Loretto powers and offsets all the power that we use for our warehouses. The solar array on site here, which if you take one of our farm experiences, you'll see that offsets all the energy and power that we use for the hospitality department. So hospitality includes my team as well as the culinary restaurant team. So if you come down here and take a tour with one of our bourbon specialists, everything that you do here, whether you go through the tasting room or you sit at the restaurant, that solar array offsets all of that for us.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. In a given week during busy season, like how many plates will the restaurant turn?
That's a great question. The restaurant opened 3 weeks ago.
Oh gosh!
So we've not had a busy season.
We have not had a busy season. It's been one of those. The building is super old, built in the 1880s, and so we believe we've finally gotten the renovations where we needed to crush and operate. But we're hoping to do as many plates as possible. Get back to me in a year, and I'll give you that number.
Fair
Sounds
enough.
good.
Yes.
So, all right, you warmed up the old palate with Makers.
Right.
Now what are we diving through? Let's go through some of these bourbons that you have so graciously given us to try today.
Yeah, so we'll I'll tell you right now the next 5 that we're gonna taste. We have Seared BU 1-3, which Brian brought for us. We did not have that. This was the very first wood finishing that we did, and I'll get to that story in a little bit. But it's in a 375. It came out in 2018 and in April around 2018, and left in April 2018. One of the smallest releases we've ever done, but kicked off wood finishing for us. Then we have the Heart release, which was 2024's wood finishing. We have the Keepers release, which is 2025. We have 2024 Cellar Aged, and then we're going to taste Star Hill Farm Wheat Whiskey, which is not a bourbon. It's the first new mash bill to ever come out of this distillery, and we released this on Tuesday of this week. So,
oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we can dive into that in a little bit, but I do want to talk about Let's break into Seared BU 1-3. So we have a program here called Maker's Mark Private Selection. I helped work on that program really since its inception, since I've been working here. As far as doing barrel selections and things like that, it's the most unique single barrel experience that is on the market. We basically let every customer of ours that gets a chance to do this be Bill Samuels and Margie Samuels and Bill Samuels Jr. for a day and create a taste vision. And then we have 5 different staves that you can put into a barrel. The P2, the Cuvée, the 46, the Mondiant, and the Spice. You can put 10 in a barrel. You have to put 10 any combination one. That's over 1,001 combinations. And then it's our team diplomats as well as our private selection specialists here help guide you through what you want. And each one of those pieces of wood changes the flavor. Some are American oak, some are French oak. They're all cooked differently, changing the chemical makeup of the wood, which then gives you different flavors. Seared BU 1-3. One thing that's great about that program is that we constantly innovate. Seared BU 1-3 was a fantastic stave. The BU is essentially for butterscotch. All right. We love that stave. We were like, this is going, and so the thing about the program is that we change staves every so often. We're like, this is going to be the first new stave. We'll take one out. We got a little bit over our skis, and we're like, this is it, because we do bottle soaks first, and we laid down 3 barrels. Now, what we didn't do was actually combine it with any of the other staves to see if it worked. We laid down 3 barrels worth, and then we started doing that, and we're like, damn it, it's great on its own, but the point of private selection is that each one of those staves highlights a flavor that already exists in Maker's Mark and amplifies it, and those staves have to work together to create a complete whiskey. None of those staves stand alone to us as a complete bourbon besides the 46 stave because of Maker's Mark 46. And so this one stood out alone, fantastic, but when you put it with other staves, just didn't do what we thought it was going to do. So then we had 3 barrels of something. We're like, what do we do? Well, let's put it in 375s and let's see how we do for essentially we had 46 cast strength as one of our first LTOs, which you sent me a picture of all of that.
Yeah.
This was the second one, and this is, if you look at our full wood finishing series, I consider this the very first part of a wood finishing series. Then we thought, hey, there's something to this, and then we created the wood finishing series after that. So this was it's a 375. This, you said you have one more.
Yep.
At the house?
One. Yeah. So I went through my first one in the first month. I mean, it was gone probably by the end of May. Like back when that was first released. And then I found one more and then another one. I've been waiting for a reason to open this, and like today is the reason. So
yeah, cheers.
Oh, absolutely.
Cheers, for sure.
When you brought this, we've only done one thing for a very long time. So innovation for us, when you started with 46 in 2009, 2010, we didn't know, because we didn't do it, that, hey, you should hold stuff back. Right? Like, hey, you should keep a few cases of this in case people want to try it for samples. And we didn't have the experience in doing that. And so it's not until recently that we're like, hey, we should keep a library of things so we can, now that we're innovating so much, because for a long time, for over 50 plus years, we only do one thing. We do it really well. We weren't aware that you should hold some of this stuff. So this, this bottle outside of, I think we have 1 or 2 in our innovation lab. I haven't seen this bottle on site here since 2018. Right. So it's really, when you brought it out, super excited to try it, because I too have 1 left that I have not opened.
It seems fitting for the day.
Yep. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
It's got such a nice, dry, note to it. That just really, so balanced.
It's like alive on your palate. It's not hot. It's not overly sweet. And you mentioned butterscotch. That was the first thing that drew me to it when I nosed it. I'm like, oh, because I hadn't had something like this unless it was in early 80s.
Yep.
ND.
Well, I will also say this. Everything else we're going to taste today, and this was not on purpose, is all at cast strength. So.
Darn.
Oh, shucky.
Oh, darn.
Darn it.
And what is the strength on this one?
This one is 110.7.
Well, we were talking about the consistency, at least we know it's not going to be like 120, 125,
Yep.
130. So these cast strengths are just a little different than what other people are used to.
Yeah. And it's
Absolutely.
this is very tasty for sure.
Yeah. I also love that your cast strength is so close to what it goes into the barrel at. I think that really keeps it pure.
I agree. I love that. I love that there's not that much fluctuation in our proof points, and it really goes to show it is truly about flavor. I said earlier, the sugars in wood are more soluble in water than they are in alcohol, and we pull that out. And you can taste it here specifically with the Seared BU 1-3.
And the fact that you shared when we were walking around that you have 40 individuals that handle all the rotation of the barrels in 50 warehouses. That is I'd love to see how many calories they're burning.
It's a hard job.
I don't want to know how many calories they're burning. That seems like a lot of work.
So, just as a side question, from a knowledge standpoint, by the rotations, does that help increase your yield because Angel's share doesn't change that much because of that?
It's a great question. I have been told, and I haven't done the math on this, but that our evaporation is less than other standard like cross-sectioning of warehouses because of our rotation. So I believe we sit around 27 to 28% evaporation in the Angel share that comes out of the barrel.
That's amazing because, I know that there's been many times whenever people have left something into like one of those special areas while the proof might go insanely high to 130, even, possibly 140s, but your yield just takes a nosedive.
Yep, absolutely.
So what's the next one here we're going to sit through?
Yeah, so now I want to talk. I'm super proud of this. So this is wood finishing series, right? And this is essentially this is the second iteration of our wood finishing series. So we had a wood finishing series that was 5 years long, and that focused on process. All right, so if you remember RC6, that was about yeast. SE4 PR5, that was all about oak. You had, SCR PR5, you had BRT, which is all about our barrel rotation. So all these things in our process that impact flavor in one way or another. And the wood finishing series was exploring how that process impacted flavor in a certain way, and then we would highlight what that flavor impacted through there. It was fantastic. We didn't do a great job marketing it because people thought that once after those 5 years, the series was over. But what was over was the process exploration of that series. We wanted to continue wood finishing series. So now you have the next iteration of wood finishing series, and this is where we focus on the people, which is awesome. So the one we're about to taste is Heart Release. This is volume 1 of 5. It's going to be 5 years. I think another great thing about it is that it's no longer like initials like FAEO1 and FAEO2, where you're just screaming like fatty acid esters, like those things. I think we talk to ourselves a lot when we name that, and to like the 1% of bourbon drinkers.
I remember because a lot of people end up naming it or dubbing it the license plate series.
License plate series. We had a lot of Star Wars series, R2D2, C3PO. That was one that I got quite a bit. So I like that. But this is about the people, and I told you guys this. We could give. We're very transparent here. We could give you everything about how we make our product, and you could try to replicate it, but you can't because you don't have the same people we do. The people that we have here are the best at what they do, and they all understand that they are a small part of a much larger process, and they care so much about their part that the people are what makes Maker's Mark what it is. And so the Heart Release focuses on the distillery, and what we did, which is cool to me and hopefully very cool to you, is that our innovation team, so Beth Butner's our senior manager of innovation, then Blake Layfield is our master distiller. They went into the distillery, all 3 shifts, and they said, what do you feel, smell, and taste when you work in here? And we took notes. And then we pulled the commonalities between all 3 shifts, and we created the taste vision for that wood finishing series, and then we made it. So the distillery, the people in the distillery got to write the taste vision for this. And that's why it's the Heart Release. It's the heart of what we do. So that's what you're tasting here, is this one. I love it.
And I love how you all began with the taste at the very beginning, and now you're focusing on the feelings, like the feelings that go into it when you see it, when you're surrounded by it.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to how we innovate here at Maker's Mark. We take a page out of Bill Samuel's senior's book, and we start with taste vision first. We don't throw stuff up against the wall and see what sticks, right? We are purposeful in our innovation. Like, we are purposefully inefficient in what we do to protect flavor. We are purposeful in innovation in what we do because, we're carrying on a legacy, and we want to make sure we honor that.
So sweet and delicate. It's just got like this really, in being a cask strength especially,
Yep. So this is 112 proof. So you're going to get notes of caramel, chocolate, maple on this.
Yeah, when I saw this on the shelves, I'm like, oh, like they're back. Because exactly what you had said, I thought that it had run its course.
Well, that and the bottle shape change, because
Yes.
during the wood finished was what the Maker's 46 originally were sent out on, which is kind of like that kind of oval shaped bottle, and those wood finish series was in that, and then this came out, which was more of an elongated version of the standard Maker's Mark bottle.
Yep. So bottle changing. We also, I'll be the first to call it out. Pretty real. I worked in the market for 7 years. We did not do a great job communicating what was coming next on our end, and so I completely understand, because we said this wood finishing series is over. We did not then say stay tuned for the next one, right? So everyone's like, cool, this is done, and then all of a sudden we come out, because that was the other thing. These were one and done innovations. I think people believed that. That this was going to be a 5-year thing and then be gone, and they collected it that way. For us, we always knew that we had another iteration coming out. We just didn't speak about it, and we learned from that.
It was like Voldemort.
So can we move on to 2025?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this one's called the Keeper's Release.
The Keeper's Release.
So we did the exact same thing, but with our warehouse guys. So what do you feel? What do you smell? What do you taste? Believe it or not, a lot of oak.
I was going to say it is very, very oak forward, but there's a lot of vanilla. Lot of vanilla.
I agree with that. I was getting like real, like those heavy, like almost like a Madagascar vanilla bean smell
like
to
that
it.
confectionery. Well, I think, and the reason behind that, if I can nerd out for 1 second.
Please do.
When you look up what makes up oak, like cellulose, hemicellulose, lactone, and lignin, right? Lignin has a compound in it, vanillin or vanilla, right? So you're always, like, when it is oak, vanilla is always going to be present. And then also, I was told, like, my mom asked, how do you do a bourbon tasting and sound smart? And I say vanilla and say caramel. And then just throw something weird out there. Because you're always going to get vanilla because of the chemical makeup of oak. And then caramel, because we char the inside barrels, which caramelizes the sugars in the wood. Those are going to be in every bourbon that you have. So if you say that, you're on the right path. And then, just be like an orange peel or, whatever else you want. Just throw that third one, just throw it out there. And people will think you're an expert. But yeah, for that, because it's Keeper's Release, because we have so much oak, you're going to get that vanilla flavor in there.
Yeah, that was just the initial, like, nosing of it. I'm getting ready to take my first pull.
Yeah, and that's what the group calls a sip, a pull. I'd never heard that before until I joined you guys. I'm like, a pull? Like, oh, they're drinking after they're saying it. Now I know what they mean.
Well, it's much more gentle than a shot, right? Like, people are like, and then for me, it was like, I started calling it a pull because of the fact that, like, people talk like, oh, I took a shot of bourbon or a shot of this. And I'm like, I want to take something easy. So I'm thinking like, pull, like, and then like, that's where I started calling it a pull. Like, and I've heard other people, and then Nick actually used the same verbiage, which I was like, that's weird. Why is Nick using the same verbiage I'm using for this?
See, I always said a pull if you're taking it straight out of the bottle, taking a pull out of the bottle.
Yeah.
For me, that makes sense. And as a 15 and 16-year-old kid, like, I worked at a gun range and I worked trap. Pull.
Yeah.
And I always saw it. Okay.
And that's where I got the verbiage. Like, I just was like, instead of taking a shot, you're taking a pull. You're like, oh, it's like the pre-shot, right?
I think my core of it was more coming from, you don't shoot bourbon. I mean, you sip it. You take a drink of it. I was just like, you pull one back.
I wish you would have told 21-year-old Thomas you didn't shoot bourbon.
We all wish we didn't.
I'm about to say, I'll tell you something else off air that we do a ritual every year, but ends up being a shot of it. But yes, but you just got to respect it, especially the craft, the history, everything that kind of goes into it. Just it's meant to be enjoyed.
We all made those younger days mistakes. It's okay, Thomas.
Yep.
Man, the oak and then like the tobacco. There's like this little bit of like light hay on this one too. So good.
Like, one of my favorite things about whiskey is that, again, this is all the same mash bill, and the fact
Absolutely,
and the fact that there is such a variety between the two.
And let's I want to let them geek out here for a second. It's the same yeast strain, so you're not modifying the yeast either.
Yeah, I think one thing that we did, and Bill Jr., when he started innovation with Maker's Mark 46, in 2009, we put up guardrails. And it was, what we do in the distillery stays the same. When you have guys that have been working there doing the same thing for 30 years, right, that stays the same. They have perfected their craft, what we do. So then how do we change? Right? It's through maturation. And then seeing how oak impacts, right? And so it's not only is it the same yeast strain, it's the same fermentation time. It's the exact same thing. It is truly just maturation in different pieces of wood in here that change the flavor, and it is staggering. When I'm doing private selection and leading those, and I've led probably close to 1,000 barrel picks in my time, it's tough to explain to people that one piece of wood will really change this, and then you show them, and they're like, then you see their eyes light up, and then it really clicks.
It's the light bulb effect. Yep. Man.
And you've done a private selection. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
It's nice.
Yeah, thank you for showing them the room. And if you all saw it when it was set up with all the cylinders, and it is so cool. I mean, I truly believe that when people visit makers, like they're always going to have they are always going to have it on their bar, for the rest of their life, because it's such an experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this next one is the Cellars Age, correct?
Cellars Age. Yeah, this is Cellars Age 2024.
So
this is the highest proof point we will drink today, and this is 119.3 proof.
So it's funny. In the bourbon world, there's this big argument between 2024, 2023 Maker Cellars Age, which one people prefer, and all that type of stuff. Do you have a favorite of the two?
Yes.
Are you allowed to say which it
There's a
is?
hesitation there.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because I do.
I like them both for different reasons.
As a diplomat, when I was the diplomat for Maker's Mark, I think what makes our advocacy team the best in the business is our access to this place. Every single diplomat for our team, this is their home. Their security badge gets them everywhere here. So if you're the diplomat in Washington, like my buddy Dave Kearns was, your badge, when you get here, gets you in every single spot. So your access to this place as a diplomat, and because you're the face of the brand and market, is truly unlike anything else. Every single one of our diplomats has our master distiller's phone number, can call, can ask. Our Travis, who runs our still house, right? They have his number. They can call and ask some questions. So our access is wild. And it was awesome. You learned so much that way. And so I was tasting cellar aged year over year. Every year it got a little bit older for 2023. And I was a part of, I tasted it before it went into the cellar, and I got to taste it every single year. So for 20, I worked on route to market plans. I worked on allocation with the state teams, and all this buildup of tasting it every single year and being like, oh my gosh, it's getting better. It can't get any better than this, right? And then next year it's getting better. 2023 is my favorite. It truly is, until you blind me on it. And then it's 2024. But so by taste alone, it is 2024. But as far as tugging on my heartstrings and being a part of something, of releasing the oldest that we've ever done, being a part of that process, 2023 is truly my favorite from an emotional standpoint. But you put that blindfold on me and you put them both in front of me, 2024 is going to win it every single time.
Yeah, I guess that heart tugging the strings for 2023 was just being able to probably get that out to the public, to let them try it, to let them experience what you've been working on.
Yeah, and just seeing people's reactions. So this one is a blend of 12 and 13-year-old. It's 15% 12-year and 85% 13-year-old. And how we make cellar age, I think, is very important. People know. So we take fully matured Maker's Mark. All right, so that's what we taste in the warehouse. Fully matured for us is cast strength. We age to taste, not to years. All right, and we have a taste panel that does that. That's something that's great for us. So we're always going to taste. So we take fully matured Maker's Mark. So it has past taste panel, it's ready to go. And then we move it into the cellar. So our cellar here stays at a constant 50 degrees, and then it just sits. All right, so there is no more fluctuation. It's just getting those sugars from the barrel and you can taste it here, the richness, the viscosity of it. And that's something that we have that no one else does is that bourbon cellar, right? And so we take advantage of that. And so it spends its first part maturating in the warehouse like everybody else.
Yep.
And then it moves into the cellar and rests.
So for me, it's funny. With the 2023, it tasted dusty. It reminded me of older bourbon. Whereas the 2024 is just so much flavor. There's a ton of flavor. There's so many notes that are coming at you. And every time I drink it, it's something different. Even today, now I'm there's a little bit of a citrus note that I've not ever gotten before. And I don't know if it's because of how much you've drank of it. And it's just every time I drink 2024, it's a little different.
It's dynamic.
It is. It's very different. So.
And the nose is very distinguishable.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about it. It's like I love whiskeys that have kind of a rock candy essence.
Yeah.
And this is, for me, it's I get that on the nose. And like I'm drawn in by sweetness and just delish.
There's a fruity note. Like, I mean, it's just, there's so much thing that's going on with this thing.
I'd said if Fruity Pebbles had a rock candy, that would be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the
Nerds.
Oh, yes.
You guys talking about each other or the candy?
Yeah.
The candy.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But both. I'm a nerd. He's a nerd.
It falls under all.
But yeah, I mean, there's just it's got so much to this. I mean, like, and that's the reason I asked you if you had a favorite. Because for me, like I said, I have a favorite for different reasons. Like that 2023 is like dusty goodness. Like I love like that yeasty, dusty like flavor that comes off that 2023. But this 2024, it's got like fruit, vanilla, caramel. It's got everything that you could possibly want in a bourbon. It's just it hits at a different level.
Yeah, I get asked quite often what your favorite, especially with my, in my role, what your favorite is. And for the whole lineup. And now we got a bunch. When I started, there were 3 things on the shelf, Maker's 46 and Cask Strength, right? And Private Selection was just getting out there. Now that we got a lot, and we got a lot of really good whiskey. But I always say, it's like kids, and I have kids, so I can say this. You love them all, but I like some more than others at certain times.
Yes,
very true.
100%. 100%.
Like for me,
My favorite changes daily sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. 46 in the fall is where I'm at, right? Like I love 46 in the fall.
Yeah.
In the dead of summer, that cocktail I said, Maker's Mark, soda water, bitters, lemon, it hits. Manhattan in the winter with Cask Strength, like all of them, depending on where I'm at. I love them all. I truly do. I have them all at my house, but I like some more than others at certain times.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to like just concur with you on that. The dynamic of the Cellars for 24. I've gone back 3 times. The first pull, got this nice cinnamon, and then waited for the second pull. I was thinking, okay, now I'm getting that little citrus that Scott had talked about, and then I even went back to re-nose it, and I'm getting like heavy tobacco on that nose as it's kind of gone down in that in the Glencairn.
All right.
All right,
Last-
now bringing out the new kid on the block.
The new kid on the block.
Thank you for this.
Because
As soon as I saw the release, I sent you a text immediately, and it wasn't asking; it was kind of dropping a little. It would be amazing if this could be part of our tasting. And then I had to put my phone on because I did not want to see the response that I did not want to see.
Yeah, well, we got it. It's here. I'd be very clear. This is not a bourbon. All right.
Oh, it is weeded whiskey.
This is a wheated whiskey.
What's the mash bill on this?
So it's a blend of 2.
Blend of
All
2.
right. It's
All right.
100% malted wheat, and then we have a 70-30 wheat and barley. So 70% wheat, 30% barley.
So, just from an education standpoint, at what part of the process did this not make it as a bourbon?
So it was never designed to be a bourbon. So really, neither of those mash bills could be bourbon because they're not 51% corn. There's no corn in there.
Gotcha.
So this is actually, there's a lot of stuff going on with this. It's different innovation than we've ever done before. This is, and you can see it on the bottle, right? This is nature as the maker. So we are purposeful in our innovation, having a taste vision going forward. We're letting nature decide how this works and this tastes versus us trying to get to a flavor. We're letting this roll how we want it to roll.
Is this your traditional red wheat?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's the same grains that we use. It's 114.7 proof, and you can't see the bottle here, but you can tell it's not dipped in red wax, right? So red wax will always be for bourbon, for us. There's a lot of I'm trying to figure out. This is so new. You can tell I'm used to talking about all of this. This is something that I haven't had a lot of opportunity, and as the Senior Manager of Experience in Education, we're working on how we speak about this. But let's talk about the bottle first. So the label, all right, that is made out of recycled label paper from our Classic Maker's Mark line, as well as spent grain.
And the bottom looks like a little torn. Is that still the homage?
It's Nod.
Yeah.
Yep. Family. All right. The cap is ceramic meant to look like limestone, right?
It looks. I thought it was limestone.
Yep.
Like I wanted to.
I thought it was like marble.
No. Like I wanted to lick it, but I didn't want to gross you guys out, so I just smelled it.
Thank you for that. I have to put this bottle back.
Or yeah.
So there's that. Also, if you notice here, Star Circle SV3, so versus SIV.
Oh,
So this is
yeah, I
Rob
see that.
Samuels. This is the first non-bourbon. Like, I think something that people need to understand, it's always the Star Circle SIV because we have always used Bill Samuels Sr.'s mash bill and recipe to do everything that we've done. This is not that. This is completely unique to us. So what I like people to focus on, because there's a lot you can focus on. What's the coolest thing about this to me is this is the first new mash bill to come out of this distillery ever. Right? That is wild.
Absolutely. That's, from commenting a little bit earlier, that you've been consistent on same mash bill, same everything. I do, as part of the, as you're kind of talking through this, how did this come about?
It came about, great question. We have been purposefully inefficient in protecting flavor for a long time. And saying, why do you do it this way? Well, that's because the way we've always done it isn't a good answer. We decided that we needed to prove that this is the best way to do it, right? And so we started looking at where flavor comes from in nature, and we started being like, well, how much flavor does wheat truly drive? And so then became experiments and figuring out where flavor truly comes from in the product. And then from those experiments, stuff like this was born. And then we were like, all right, well, so we figured out what about from wheat. So what about how the wheat is grown? Like, what about regenerative agriculture? Like, all the way down to those types of things. And that is how this has come to be. And, the goal of this and what we're doing with this is also working to grow regenerative agriculture across the world. As what we're a Regenified certified distillery farm. And so it's taking care of the land to make sure that people can use it for many years after us.
Right. And this ties back to a lot of that sustainability from our tour that you gave us. And
right.
It's just absolutely amazing.
It truly is. And this whiskey is delicious.
And so this is a blend of two different mash bills. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wow. So not only did you release your second mash bill since 1953, you released your third at the same time.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when we swing big, right?
I'm just nosing this thing, man, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I feel like I'm in my grandpa's old hayloft. Like, it's just like that sweet, wet, yeasty, smell, from where you just cut some hay.
I was about to say just fresh cut.
Man.
So I think another thing that's important to talk about this is that it's the same yeast, right? It's our same fermentation tanks, like the process, same distillation points that we've always done. So we haven't even messed with that yet.
There's no variation there yet.
With that, it is truly ingredient based.
All right, I'm going in.
Hey, Barb, so you're over there in your own little world. Are you going back somewhere? I mean, does this bring something out?
No, honestly, I'm not feeling the best today.
Fair enough. Hopefully this medicinal deliciousness is going to help.
Ooh, there's some spice there.
I also poured it in two different style glasses because I get different, with these big old nostrils, I get two different things out of here. So I love to do this.
Yeah, the smaller glass is a little sweeter on the nose than the bigger glass. But man, I'm telling you.
How many iterations were there to get to this final product?
There are quite a few. I can't give you an exact number of how many we did, but there were, it's a blend of two different mash bills, right? There was quite a few that were tried out. And I had the opportunity when they were deciding final blend to go in and smell and give my opinion. Now, I want to be very clear. That does not mean it was listened to. Does not mean it helped to make the decision. But, I say this about my son all the time. I'm just happy to be invited. I don't have to make an impact, but just being in the room is cool to me.
Being in the room when it happens, right?
Yeah.
It's like Hamilton.
Yeah, when people what are your career aspirations for Maker's Mark? It's I want to be at the table when decisions that impact the brand globally happen. And I was at the table for this one, and that was cool.
That's a beautiful time. So the glass on it, because you described the bottle, the glass looks like old Western.
Yep.
It's kind of got the glass where it's a little beaten glass.
It's dented and beaten up. Yeah,
I looks like an old whiskey bottle.
Yeah, that's kind of a callback for us and where we want to go with this.
Is this a one-time release or is this going to be continuous?
This will be an annual release. But now the blend might change, right? Because there's a lot of other stuff that we haven't talked about with this.
We have time.
There are things like when you're releasing we can get to marketing and things like that. When you're releasing a first new to world, like people, weren't asking for a wheat whiskey, right? And there's a lot of cool stuff, innovative stuff with this that I don't want to get into because I want people to focus on the tremendous impact that the first new mash bill at Maker's Mark Distillery truly is. And we can get into, with these other new releases, like the stuff that we do with, there were some barrel experiments when it came to surface area and things like that I don't want to dive into because we can get into that, but we don't realize, we lose how monumental of a release this truly is if we get into the weeds about it. Right, like first new mash bill at Maker's Mark is what I want people to understand about this, and I think I've worked here for 9 years, and I can say, and I have one of the bottles from the first release, and tell my kids that like, hey, I was a part of this. Like I tell the tour team, like this is cool. This is something. If you had asked me 9 years ago, are we ever going to do this? I would have said absolutely not. Right, and now we're part of it, and a lot of this came from that. Mind shift and switch to sustainability and taking care of the environment, right? That's like where this stemmed from. We say bourbon is nature distilled. We truly believe that. This is about nature is the maker and letting nature and how you grow things impact flavor and explore that. It's exploration versus purposeful innovation.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the bottle itself, there's 3 things that you can take away from it initially. Obviously, because it's a whiskey, it's something extremely different. It's non-waxed, and the actual, we'll say the stamp is different, and that's face value. Looking at it and seeing that in the product itself and what you guys have put out.
Yeah, and that's couldn't have said it better. Those 3 things are massive, right, for us as a brand. And I think we will continue as we go into this to get into the specific details of the science behind it. But right now, I think it's a celebration of a brand that's never changed the mash bill doing that and taking the risk, but also using that to highlight nature as the maker and sustainability and how important it is for us to continue in a product that depends completely on agriculture to exist.
I can only imagine the excitement as you were coming up to release day, getting everybody ready, getting everybody dressed, getting everything tucked in, getting everything together. Can you share like what that morning was that you all opened up, and how many? So certain places they have snakes to how many people are in line because it goes back and forth.
Yeah,
explain some of that for us.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's for Cellars Age, it's completely different. People have been asking for years for older Maker's Mark for years, right? No one was like, hey, y'all should do a wheat whiskey, right? Like that. This was clearly a decision that we made based on figuring out where flavor comes from and how nature impacts flavor, right? And so when we did the original like global press release in April for this and had pressed down, and it was a big thing, and we released in May, and we did a decent email push to our ambassadors. We had for this one, we for our Cellars Age releases, we were out there at 3:00 in the morning, lining people, giving them tickets. For this one, we said, let's see how it goes. We had 40 people for the release, and we opened at 9:00.
Cow. Right,
and it was a 2-bottle maximum.
Like so, we're all in different Facebook groups that are like just nerds, and there were so many people. Hey, who's headed to Makers?
Yep.
And then at 1:00, I put out there, hey, who's opened it? And I've gotten pictures, probably 4, in the parking lot where they have it open and they're drinking it already. Like, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I think it goes to show you when you're doing something, for nature and for flavor exploration and not what people are asking for, that doesn't mean they're going to line up. Now, I think for this brand, once they taste it, once they get there, like, I like it because it gives people opportunity to discover it. And it not being the lines and the hype and people buying it because it's this and it's going to sell this much on secondary, and people buying it like they did classic Makers. Like, it looks different. It's cool. It's delicious. Like, I want to get more of this. The people are going to have a chance to experience this and then also realize how much nature does impact flavor.
I'm still here just trying to like wrap my mind around the fact that it's not Makers.
Yeah.
Like that's the hardest part for me, sitting here, and it's so good, and it's own little world and way. Like I said, that hay quality, the sweetness, there's a delicateness to it. There's this weird fruit note that I can't like describe right now. I'm just keep going back to it, and I'm just having a hard time grasping it.
We get like there's a wheat bread or like a wheat berry bread.
Yeah,
There's a certain. I mean, there's that sweetness to the nose. I also I love that you all made a stand. You like this like the family tree just kind of went out to the side, and it went out to the side with two different branches with two different mash bills. Like that's like, yeah, you go boy.
Yeah, and I think I was talking to somebody about this. If you look at the Samuels family, and Bill Senior was all about flavor driven, taste pro, flavor vision. Go, like stand by your guns. This is what we're gonna do. You look at how Bill Jr. took over this brand, and we went from a Kentucky only brand to the global icon it is today. So Bill Jr. all about Bill Senior all about making it. Bill Jr. When they hired Bill Jr., the way he tells the story, his dad said his job was to go find customers. And I think he did that extremely well. And then you look at Rob and what that looks like as the grandson of two, iconic bourbon people. And I think Rob is establishing the legacy of what the brand truly stands for, right? And doing it the same way his family did with fantastic whiskey.
I almost like, and if I didn't know any better, and maybe I don't know, I'm just guessing. Like it's almost like it does have a French oak quality. Like, is it a different char level maybe than your all's traditional three level?
I mean, you're punching at some things right now.
Okay.
Oh, I love when this happens. Because it's real. It's in real time.
It's just different. Like, and it's just the tasting notes are just. I'm just grasping here, but like, there's just certain things that are punching at me in some certain ways that I'm just like, I don't know.
It's good, and by the way, we still have it here at our gift shop for sale. So when we get done here, if you guys want to grab a bottle, it's available.
A bottle or two.
We can get two.
Deal.
Side-eyed saying that I need to.
Yeah, no, you need 4.
I mean, it is fantastic. It hit market on Monday, right? We released it here on Tuesday. It does a great job telling the story of sustainability, valuing nature, and where this brand's going to go in the future.
Yep. Like, I appreciate that. It's like, so I've been here 6, 7, 8 times. I didn't know much about Star Hill Farm. It wasn't until you took us like behind the scenes where we got to drive around and hear the story behind it. And is this really kind of brings Star Hill Farms to the forefront?
Yeah, absolutely. We are Maker's Mark Distillery on Star Hill Farm, and this brings the whole place, the 1,100 acres that we have, right, to the forefront, because this first iteration is our corn and our wheat that we source from our partners, our wheat, right, that we source from our partners, the Madeline and the Petersons. And the goal eventually for this is that, we have 1,100 acres. You're looking right out that window. We've got an experimental wheat field going right out there. The goal of this will be estate grains, right?
Amazing. So how many cases are in this very first release?
It's about the same number as Cellars Age was.
Okay. All right. And then how many states will this be available in?
It's a great question. Not all of them.
So all the states that have makers will not be fortunate enough to get this.
It's that allocated, and we are doing a little bit of international release as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah, do you guys want to hear?
Yeah, I was gonna say, hand that back.
I must say, I saw Scott over there. It's not often that I see him kind of like hunched over and really deep in thought.
Yeah, like ever. Because that's why I keep on looking back at him, and he keeps on taking this glass. So I have 2 different style glasses in front of me. This is like a Copita style glass.
Yep.
And then you mentioned, what's this style?
It's a Stotzel.
Is this your all's preferred? Or
That's what we use.
Yeah. And I get that. So I've never seen Scott's.
It's got a little bit wider nose than the Glencairn does.
Yeah.
And I if we go glass style, I truly like to smell mine whiskey out of a rocks glass. I like the surface area definition and getting
I'm a
my
Canadian
whole
Glen
nose
guy for
in
that
there.
reason. Yeah.
I like that. I love these glasses. These are great. I like the bigger mouth for them and how it spreads out.
Yeah, I must say this is these style is very close to a Canadian Glen except for the stem.
Yep. And then I think the stem for us, your hand is not heating the whiskey, right?
Yep. Amen to that. And on the bottle, locally grown whiskey without the E.
Yep, absolutely. Sticking with that. The same as family hail from Scotland.
Yep.
Right. So it's the same on Maker's bottles as well.
Farm to showcase the influence of our land, nature as the maker. it wasn't until today that I took the tour that I realized how entwined you are with nature. And you'd said that bourbon is part of agriculture, or it's an agricultural spirit.
Yep.
I've never heard it said in that exact way before, ever. And it's really sinking in today.
That makes me happy. I think that's a drum that we are happy to be here at Maker's Mark Distillery and Star Hill Farm.
Yep. Loud and proud.
I think that pays a lot of homage to the symbol, the circle, that you are really creating that circle of life, here for that.
And then just to touch on again, so between the two, 51% soft red winter wheat, 20% malted soft red winter wheat, and 22% malted barley.
Mm-hmm.
This is cool. This is really cool.
Yeah, this is definitely. So I want to tell the listeners, right? This is not Maker's Mark.
It is not. Nope.
But there's something very special about this bottle. There's a lot of complexity and some things that you are really going to love about this bottle, for sure.
And then, also, hold it up, color difference.
Staggering. Yeah, it's definitely a little darker.
It's darker.
And for those that want to come to the distillery, what type of tours do you have available where this could be on the forefront?
That's great. So right now we have a Star Hill Farm wheat whiskey experience that is completely sold out. We run it for a month because this is a limited release. When it's gone, right? We have that. We have the ultimate Star Hill Farm whiskey experience, which is a 9-person experience where you get to taste with Beth Buckner and Blake Layfield, our master distiller, and have a dinner. That's sold out within, I think, 3 to 4 minutes of releasing. That also includes a bottle. The Star Hill Farm wheat whiskey experience, if you do get a chance to sign up, if someone backs out and you can, that gives you the guaranteed chance to purchase a bottle, but it's not included in the price. So that's experience, and that is led by Amanda Humphrey, who is our Star Hill Farm advocacy manager and experience manager, and she's fantastic. So she's come up with this experience, and she's very, very good at what she does. You get a chance to experience that, along with Ethan, who's one of our Star Hill Farm experience leads.
There's this nice maple note that's coming in on this.
I've never seen you so...
Listen, I've been nosing this glass so hard today. Like I'm only getting it on my left side, which is usually where I get my sweetness. But there's this maple note on the nose that just keeps coming through, and it's so faint, but it's just. And then when I taste it, it's like the most soft, almost like you put brown sugar on a pancake type note.
It's like a first kiss.
No.
In that it's soft, it's
I
memorable.
don't know if it's as good as my first kiss, but it's
I wouldn't say as
it's
good
pretty
as.
good.
Better than mine, I'll tell you that.
Well, I waited a long time.
Man, Thomas, this is great, man. Thank you so much.
Of course, I'm happy to be here, and I would be remiss if I didn't invite everybody listening to this to come down and see us at Maker's Mark Distillery. I have to tell you that we have the best experienced team in the business. They're not tour guides, they're bourbon specialists for a reason. They know everything that they're talking about here, and they are experts in Maker's Mark, and they're the very best at what they do. Come down, come see us. I can't guarantee that Star Hill Farm wheat whiskey will be in stock when you get here, but I can guarantee you that we will have the best bourbon made in Kentucky in stock when you are here.
So tell people, how do they book an experience?
Yeah, you can go online at makersmark.com, and that's one thing about our distillery that's different than a lot, is that we have up to 10 different experiences that you can do to experience. If you want to experience the farm, right? We have a Whiskey Creek walking tour. We have a farm tour. We have an oak experience. We have multiple different behind the bourbon to our classic Maker's Mark tour. We have dinners on site at our restaurant. There are multiple ways to experience our distillery, and at makersmark.com is the best way to go and see. And then we have full descriptions. We also have a yoga and sound bath experience that we just launched 2 weeks ago.
Yoga?
Yeah, it looked exhausting.
Yeah, it's... So I will plug this. We have a tour guide on site here, and she's also a certified yoga instructor. And so she came to me and was like, hey, I have this idea. I want to do a yoga experience. And they tried it last year, and it wasn't selling out. And I was like, well, let's really lean into this. And so it's all about sustainability itself. And what that means is that we at Maker's Mark pride ourselves in our sustainability. We've talked about it a lot. That is hard work to do. And, one thing we love here at Maker's Mark is accountability. You say you're going to do something, you do something, and we stand by that. And it's hard work to do that and be sustainable and, be a B Corp and continue to live those values every single day. And if you don't take care of yourself, it's hard to do that good work,
Yeah.
Right. And so the yoga and sound bath classes, we take you around the farm. You go see the genome tree where we use to map the genome of white American oak, and we talk about sustainability initiatives. Then Taylor leads you through a yoga experience where all the poses also tie into what you saw on the farm. And then we have a sound bath, which you haven't been that. It's just basically relaxation. It's a guided meditation relaxation that also talks about sustainability on the farm. And then you have the chance to have a mocktail or a cocktail, and then you explore the distillery as well, and you see our sustainability in action in our product. It's a 2-hour experience. If you look on the website, you will see a large man in a red shirt doing yoga. That is me. Anyone can do it. It is for beginners. I'm not a yoga person, but it is a phenomenal experience. But we only do it every other Sunday. It's limited. It's 10 people. But that's the type of stuff that we're doing here that other people aren't.
I mean, I can already envision this, right? You're up on the hill someplace, right? You've freshly cut the grass. It's all laid out. Bare feet, connecting to earth, drinking whiskey and doing yoga. Like, it'd be great.
It's fantastic. We launched it last Sunday. We're not sold out for the next one. We got 6 people. We got 4 spots left. And we want people to experience Maker's Mark in different ways, because that's something else about this. Bourbon is meant to be enjoyed however you want to enjoy it.
Right.
Like, I hate when people tell you how to drink your bourbon. That's like if someone told you how to eat an apple, right? Some people like their apple peeled. Some people like it sliced up. Some people like it with peanut butter. Look at me. You can tell I love my apples and pies, right? Like no one should tell you how to drink your bourbon, and no one should tell you how to experience your bourbon. And so what we like to do is to do bourbon experiences differently, so you can find one that works for you, so you can then sing and the praises of Maker's Mark and what we're doing here on site in a way that really connects with you, because bourbon is all about connecting people. How you do that is up to what you like, but the common denominator should be a great glass of bourbon, which we've all shared today.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm about to say the only time that I've ever told somebody about how to do bourbon is like going, please open your mouth before you breathe in.
Yes.
Otherwise, those nose hairs might get a little singed.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
And before we wrap this up, because I think that we're at the end here, because we've been here a long time. This has been amazing. Brian Gelfo, thank you so much for the introduction to Thomas. Like, the day would not have been possible without that introduction. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so great. And I know he has a long history with Makers and the Samuels and everybody. So, yeah, love you, brother.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Thank you, Brian. There are not very many people that I ask Maker's Mark questions to, because I have pretty encyclopedic knowledge, and I have asked Brian in the past, like, hey, what do you think the value of this bottle is? Like, I've done that. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brian.
Brian definitely has that knowledge. So let's socials, all that good stuff. Like, how do people like find you outside of makersmark.com, that type of thing?
Yep. So
let's go through that.
Yeah, you can follow on Instagram. You can follow Maker's Mark, right? That's where we are. If you want to connect with me, because I post a lot about what we're doing down here. I'm at Bearded Bourbon Boy on Instagram. That's the only real social media that I have. You can follow that, and I'll post about our new experiences and things like that. And also, like we said, makersmark.com for any and all experiences and things. So as we continue to go, you can also go to starhillfarm.com for Star Hill Farm wheat whiskey.
There you go. Well, I think that's our episode of Bourbon Barrel Talk. Thanks so much again, Thomas. If you want to find us, you can find us on Facebook, the Instagram, or the X. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. That way you get our episodes as soon as they drop on Sunday morning. If you have any questions, you can send them to bourbonbarreltalk@gmail.com or to any of our social media platforms. This is Scott the Brox, Brian, and Thomas signing off from Maker's Mark. Peace out.
Prost.
Bye.
To infinity.